The station hung in empty space like a giant metal flower. Axiom Prime was bigger than any city on Earth, built by aliens who had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Inside its crystal halls, Captain Day stood alone before the Galactic Council, and he had never felt smaller in his life. Day wore his best uniform, the blue and silver of Earth's diplomatic corps. His hands stayed steady at his sides, but his heart hammered in his chest. Around him, the council chamber rose in circular tiers, each level filled with alien beings who looked nothing like humans. Some had scales, others had too many eyes, and a few were just clouds of light trapped in glass containers. All of them stared down at him with expressions he could not read. "Captain Day, of the species called humanity," a voice echoed through the chamber. It came from everywhere at once. "You stand accused of breaking the sacred accords. How do you answer?" Day swallowed hard. Beside him, Dr. Hannah Lim touched his arm gently. She was the smartest person he knew, an expert on ancient alien cultures. Her presence gave him courage. "We answer that we are innocent," Day said, his voice clear and strong. "Humanity did not know about any sacred accords. We were exploring, not breaking laws." A creature that looked like a giant insect stepped forward from the highest tier. Its body was covered in purple armor, and its multiple eyes glittered like black diamonds. This was the prosecutor, a Velmara named Korith. "Ignorance is not innocence," Korith's voice clicked and buzzed. "Your species discovered 3 forbidden zones in the past year. You sent teams to dig. You took items that were sealed by ancient law. You disturbed what should never be touched." The chamber's walls lit up with images. Day saw human scientists in protective suits, working at dig sites on rocky worlds. He recognized some of the faces. These were good people, researchers looking for minerals and resources for Earth's growing colonies. "We thought those were just old ruins," Hannah spoke up. Her voice was calm, like she was teaching a class. "There were no warning signs in any language we could read. The zones were marked only with symbols we did not understand." "That is exactly the problem," another council member said. "This one looked like a living crystal, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns. Humans spread too fast. 50 colonies in just 300 years. You go everywhere, touch everything, ask questions about things that should remain secret." Day felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry would not help humanity's case. "Is curiosity a crime now?" he asked quietly. "On Earth, we teach our children to explore, to learn, to discover. That is how we grow, and that is why you are dangerous," Korith said. The insect prosecutor touched a device, and more images appeared. These showed weapons, terrible machines that could crack open planets. The Forbidden Zones contain knowledge from the First War, a war so terrible that the galaxy almost died. We, the elder races, sealed that knowledge away to protect everyone. Your species threatens to unleash it again." Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Day could feel the mood turning against him. These beings had already decided humanity was guilty. This trial was just for show. "What is the sentence?" Day asked, his voice tight. The crystal being, who Day now knew was called Selector Vin, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "If humanity is found guilty, you will be quarantined. All your colonies will be evacuated. Your homeworld will be surrounded by a barrier that nothing can pass through. You will stay there for 1,000 years. 1,000 years? Hannah gasped beside him. That would destroy us. Our colonies need Earth's resources. Earth needs the colonies' food and medicine. We are one civilization now, spread across many worlds. Then you should have been more careful, Korith said with what might have been satisfaction. Selector Vin continued. There is also the matter of corrective measures. Humanity's aggressive curiosity must be reduced. We can alter your genetic code to make you more peaceful, more accepting of boundaries. You want to change what makes us human, Day said. And now his voice shook with anger he could not hide. You want to lobotomize an entire species. Because we asked too many questions. We want to prevent another war, Vin said simply. The price of one species is small, compared to the death of billions across the galaxy. The Council voted quickly. Out of 50 member species, 47 found humanity guilty. Only 3 voted in favor of humans, all younger races that had joined the Council in the last 1,000 years. Sentencing will occur in 3 cycles, Vin announced. Captain Day, Dr. Lim, you are dismissed. Return to your vessel and await our judgment. Day and Hana walked out of the chamber in silence. The corridors of Axiom Prime were busy with aliens of every shape and size, but none of them looked at the 2 humans. It was as if they were already ghosts, already erased from the galaxy. Back on their small shuttle, Day slammed his fist against the wall. 300 years, he said. We have been in space for 300 years, and now they want to cage us like animals because we move too fast for their comfort. Hana sat down heavily in her chair. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp and thinking. There is something wrong with this whole thing, she said. The Council is afraid of us. Yes, but not because of what we did. They are afraid of what we represent. What do you mean? Think about it. They said we spread too fast. Asked too many questions. But what kind of civilization punishes curiosity? What kind of government rules by keeping knowledge locked away? Hana pulled up star maps on her computer. These forbidden zones, they are not just random places. They are spread across the galaxy in a pattern. It is almost like someone wanted them to be found eventually. Before Day could answer, their communication system beeped. An encrypted message appeared on the screen. Sender unknown. Hana opened it carefully, checking for viruses or traps. Inside was a single set of coordinates and a message. The truth sleeps where the first war ended. Come to Thanix 7 if you want to save your species. Day and Hana looked at each other. Thanix 7 was one of the forbidden zones, the most restricted place in known space. Going there would be proof of humanity's guilt. The Council would have every right to execute them. We should not do this, Hana said, but her fingers were already plotting the course. I know, Day replied, and reached for the controls to start the engine. Sometimes the only way to prove your innocence was to break the rules that made you guilty in the first place. The shuttle left Axiom Prime in the middle of the night cycle, when most of the station's security teams were changing shifts. Lieutenant Yuna sat in the pilot's seat, her hands dancing across the controls with practiced ease. She was the best pilot Day had ever known, able to thread a ship through asteroid fields that would make other pilots quit in fear. We have a 3-day flight ahead, Yuna said without looking back. I have programmed us to take the long route through the nebula belt. It will hide our heat signature from any tracking systems. In the back of the shuttle, Engineer Jin was pulling apart a wall panel. Wires and circuits lay scattered around him like electronic intestines. I am disabling our tracking beacon, he explained when Day looked at him with concern. The Council installed monitors on all diplomatic vessels. If I do not remove it, they will know exactly where we are going. Hana sat at a small table, her portable computer covered with files and images. She had been downloading everything she could find about Thanix 7 before they left the station. Now she studied the information with intense focus. What do we know about this place? Day asked, sitting down beside her. Hana pulled up an image of a gray planet, dead and cold. Thanix 7 is in the outer rim, far from any major trade routes. It has no atmosphere worth breathing and no resources worth mining. The surface temperature ranges from freezing to slightly less freezing. According to official records, it is the site of the final battle of the First War, the war that nearly destroyed the galaxy, Yuna said from the pilot's seat. That is what the Council teaches, Hana agreed. But here is the interesting part. Every record about the First War is vague. No specific dates, no names of species involved, no details about what they were fighting over. Just warnings that it was terrible and must never happen again. Jin finished his work and closed the wall panel. Sounds like someone does not want people asking questions about it. Exactly, Hana said. She pulled up more images, these showing strange structures on Thanix 7's surface. Look at these ruins. They are massive, Some of those pyramids are 10 times bigger than anything humans have ever built. The towers reach up 5 kilometers into the dead sky. Whatever civilization built these was incredibly advanced. Day studied the images. And the council says this is all from the First War? Who built these cities? The official answer is that we do not know because everyone who knew is dead. Hana's voice held doubt. But I have spent my whole career studying ancient ruins. These structures follow patterns I have seen before. In sites across the galaxy, whoever built them had a specific architectural language. And Day, I found something else. She pulled up a scan of a marker stone covered in symbols. These markings appear on structures throughout the galaxy. I have been cataloging them for years. The council calls them warnings, but I think they are more like signs. Road markers, maybe. Or a filing system. A filing system for what? Jin asked, coming to look over their shoulders. For knowledge, Hana said quietly. I think the forbidden zones are not weapon storage sites. I think they are libraries. The shuttle flew on through empty space, days passing in the close quarters. Day found himself unable to sleep much. He kept thinking about the trial, about Selector Vin's cold voice pronouncing humanity guilty, about the idea of Earth surrounded by a barrier, cut off from the stars forever. On the second day, Yuna called everyone to the cockpit. We have a problem. There is a council patrol ship on the edge of my sensors. They are far away, but they are moving on an intercept course. Did they detect us? Day asked. I do not think so. I think they are running a standard patrol pattern. Yuna's fingers moved across her controls. But if we continue on our current course, we will pass within their scanning range in about 6 hours. Can we go around them? Yes, but it will add another day to our journey, and use fuel we might need for the return trip. Day made the decision quickly. Take the long route. We did not come this far to get caught now. Yuna nodded and adjusted their course. The ship curved away into deeper space, where the stars shone cold and distant. On the third day, Thanix 7 appeared on their screens. It looked exactly like the images had shown, a dead gray ball hanging in the void. No orbital stations, no defense platforms, nothing. Just the planet and the ancient ruins on its surface. This is strange, Jin said, checking his instruments. There are no security measures at all. No warning beacons. No automated defenses. For a place that is supposedly the most forbidden in the galaxy, it is completely unguarded. Maybe they think the reputation is enough to keep people away, Yuna suggested. Hana shook her head. Or maybe they do not expect anyone to find anything useful here. Maybe the real secrets are buried so deep that the council thinks no one will dig far enough. They landed near the largest cluster of ruins, in the shadow of a pyramid that reached into the pale sky. When they stepped out of the shuttle, the air was thin and cold, barely breathable. They all wore breathing masks and heated suits. The ruins stretched in every direction, a city built for giants. The streets were wide enough to drive a ship down. The doorways were 10 meters tall. Everything was covered in a layer of gray dust that might have been falling for hundreds of thousands of years. Where do we start? Day asked, feeling overwhelmed by the sheer size of everything. Hana was already moving toward a marker stone near the pyramid's base. She pulled out her portable scanner and began recording the symbols carved into its surface. These are directions, she said after a moment. They point down to something underground. They found the entrance after an hour of searching. It was a ramp that spiraled down into darkness, wide enough for their whole group to walk side by side. Jin set up portable lights, and they began their descent. The ramp went down for what felt like forever. The walls were smooth and covered in more symbols. Hana stopped every few minutes to scan them, building a translation in her computer. This is incredible, she whispered. These symbols, they are not just one language. They are hundreds of languages, all mixed together. Like someone wanted to make sure any species could read them eventually. Finally, the ramp opened into a vast underground vault. Their lights could not reach the far walls or the ceiling. The space felt endless, like a cave that went on forever. In the center of the vault stood a crystal structure, glowing with soft blue light. As they approached, the glow got brighter, and suddenly images appeared in the air around them, holographic projections, sharp and clear, as if they had been recorded yesterday. An alien figure materialized before them. It was tall and thin, with 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern on its face. It wore robes covered in the same symbols that marked the walls. "If you are watching this," the figure said in perfect Korean, then repeated in English, then in dozens of other languages, "Your species has been accused. Know that you are not the first." The cycle repeats every 100,000 years. They fear what you represent. Day felt his breath catch in his throat. This message had been waiting here. For humanity. For longer than humans had existed. "I am Chronicler Tam, of the Architects," the figure continued. "We built this vault, and many others like it across the galaxy. We built them because we knew what would happen. We knew the old ones would fear the new. They always do." More holograms appeared, showing scenes from ancient history. Cities rising and falling, species spreading across the stars, and always, councils of elder races watching with suspicious eyes. "The Galactic Council is not what they claim," Tam said. "They do not keep peace. They keep power. They suppress any species that grows too quickly, thinks too differently, threatens their control. They did it to us. They will do it to you." The hologram changed to show the forbidden zones, scattered across the galaxy map. "These zones are not weapon caches. They are libraries. We hid knowledge here, knowledge that can help young species stand against the old, knowledge they tried to destroy." Suddenly, alarms blared from their shuttle above. Yuna checked her portable communicator and her face went pale. "Council ships. Multiple contacts. Entering orbit right now. Someone tracked us here." Day looked at the hologram. At Hana's excited face as she recorded everything. At the vast vault of knowledge around them. They had found the truth. But now they had to survive long enough to share it. The council ships appeared on their scanners like sharks circling prey. Yuna counted at least 6 vessels, each one large enough to carry hundreds of troops. Their shuttle would not survive even one shot from those ships. "We need to go, now," Yuna said, her voice tight with stress. But Hana was staring at her computer screen, her eyes wide. "Wait." Chronicler Tam's message mentioned a final vault. "Something deeper than this. Look at these symbols here." She pointed to a wall where the carvings were different, more urgent. "These are warnings. They say that what lies below is dangerous, even to the architects themselves." "Then maybe we should listen to the warning," Jin said nervously. Day looked up at the ceiling, imagining the council troops preparing to descend. They could run back to their shuttle, but they would be captured before they reached orbit. Or they could go deeper, into a place that even ancient super-advanced aliens feared. "How do we get down there?" he asked Hana. She ran her fingers along the wall until she found a panel that looked different from the rest. When she pressed it, a section of floor began to slide away, revealing another ramp going down into deeper darkness. "Everyone grab what you need," Day ordered. "Yuna, set charges on our back trail. If they follow us down, we will slow them down." Yuna pulled explosive devices from her pack and began placing them along the ramp they had used to enter. Jin gathered their scanning equipment and lights. Hana downloaded every file she could from the holographic archives, her hands shaking with either fear or excitement. The new ramp was different from the first. It was narrower, steeper, and the walls were covered in warnings written in a dozen languages. Hana translated them as they descended. "Turn back. Danger below. Only in the final need. The witness sleeps." "Comforting," Jin muttered. They had been descending for maybe 20 minutes when they heard the first explosion above them. Yuna's charges were going off, which meant the council troops had entered the vault. "They are following us," Yuna said unnecessarily. The ramp finally ended in a massive chamber. But this was not like the vault above. That had felt like a library or a museum. This place felt alive. The walls pulsed with faint light, like a heartbeat. The air was thick with energy that made their hair stand on end and their instruments go crazy with readings. In the center of the chamber floated a sphere. It was perfectly black, darker than space itself, about the size of a small car. But around it, reality seemed to bend. The sphere was contained in a field of crystal that glowed and shifted. And looking at it too long made Day's eyes hurt and his head spin. On the floor around the sphere, carved deep into the stone, was a single word repeated in thousands of languages. Hana read it aloud. "Witness. What is it?" Jin asked, keeping his distance. "I do not know," Hana said, but she was moving closer, pulled by curiosity stronger than fear. "It is not giving off radiation exactly. It is more like it is giving off information. Raw data, pure knowledge." More explosions echoed from above. The council troops were getting closer, blasting through Yuna's traps. "We are trapped," Yuna said, checking the chamber. "There is no other exit. This is the end of the line." Day looked at the sphere. At Hana, who was now standing right at the edge of the crystal field. "What happens if we touch it?" "I have no idea," Hana admitted. "But Chronicler Tam led us here. This must be what he wanted us to find." Before anyone could stop her, Hana reached out and pressed her hand against the crystal field. The sphere reacted instantly. Light exploded from it. Not regular light, but something that went straight into their minds. Day fell to his knees as images flooded his consciousness. Memories that were not his, experiences from lives he had never lived, knowledge from civilizations that died before humans discovered fire. He saw the rise of the architects, a species that had mastered science and art in equal measure. He saw them spread across the galaxy, young and curious and full of hope. He saw them discover the Galactic Council, ancient races that had claimed the galaxy as their own territory. He saw the architects asking questions. Why were certain zones forbidden? Why was knowledge controlled? Why did only the oldest species get to make decisions? He saw the council's answer. Violence. The first war was not started by young races being reckless. It was started by old races refusing to share power. When the architects demanded equality, the council crushed them. Not completely, because that would be too obvious. But they broke them down, scattered them, and rewrote history to make the architects look like dangerous rebels. The visions continued, showing species after species. Each one rose with some unique gift. Each one was labeled dangerous by the council. Each one was suppressed, either through war, through quarantine, or through genetic modification that stripped away what made them special. Day saw what made humanity different. It was not strength or intelligence alone. It was something the other species had lost over millennia of council rule. The absolute conviction that unfairness was unacceptable. Humans saw injustice and could not look away. They would fight losing battles just because it was the right thing to do. They would risk everything to protect the weak, even when the weak were not their own kind. The council feared this more than any weapon. Because justice was contagious. Once one species started demanding fairness, others would follow. The whole careful system of control would fall apart. The sphere showed them its purpose. It was created by the very first civilization to rule the galaxy. Long before the current council existed, that civilization had learned the hard way what happens when power concentrates in too few hands. They created the witness as a fail-safe, a memory that could never be erased, a truth that would speak when needed most. Witness humanity. The sphere spoke directly into their minds. Bearer of justice. As were the architects before you. As were the keepers before them. As were the first builders before all. The cycle ends now. Let them speak. The sphere began broadcasting. Not just to the chamber, not just to the planet, but to every communication device in the galaxy. It cut through encryption, jamming, everything. Every ship, every station, every world with advanced technology received the message simultaneously. The message included everything. The real history of the First War. genetic evidence showing that humans carried dormant genes from the architects, making them distant descendants. The list of 17 species suppressed by the Council over the last million years, 3 of those species had been forcibly devolved, their intelligence reduced until they could no longer threaten the old order. The Council had kept peace, yes, but it was the peace of a prison, where no one was allowed to grow beyond the bars. When the visions finally ended, Day found himself lying on the floor, tears streaming down his face. Beside him, Hana was sobbing. Jin and Yuna held each other, shaking. The sound of footsteps echoed down the ramp. The council troops had arrived, but when they entered the chamber, they stopped, their weapons lowered, because they too had received the broadcast. They too had seen the truth. The lead trooper, a Velmara soldier in black armor, removed his helmet. His multiple eyes were wide with shock. "Is it true?" he asked in broken English. "Did we really do all those things?" "Yes," Day said, climbing to his feet. "But that does not mean you personally did them. These crimes happened over thousands of years. What matters now is what we all do next." Another explosion, but this time from above ground. More ships were arriving in orbit. But these were not council ships. According to Yuna's communicator, dozens of species were sending representatives. Some were breaking away from the council entirely. Others were demanding emergency sessions. The galaxy was in chaos. The witness pulsed once more, satisfied that its message had been heard. Then, it fell silent, its energy fading. It had waited 500,000 years to speak. Now that it had spoken, it could rest. Hana picked herself up from the floor and looked at Day. "What now?" "Now," Day said. "We go back up there. We face whatever comes next. Because that is what bearers of justice do." The Velmara trooper nodded slowly. "I will escort you. Not as prisoners. As witnesses. The galaxy needs to hear your story from your own voices." As they climbed back up the ramp, Day felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Humanity had been judged guilty. But in proving their innocence, they had put the entire Galactic Council on trial instead. What happened next would determine not just humanity's fate, but the fate of every species in the galaxy. The Age of the Elders was ending. The question was, what would replace it? The journey back to Axiom Prime took 3 days. But this time, they did not travel in secret. A fleet of ships surrounded their small shuttle, vessels from a dozen different species. Some came to protect them. Others came to make sure they actually returned for judgment. The galaxy watched every moment through live broadcasts. When they docked at Axiom Prime, Day expected to be arrested. Instead, they found the station transformed. Protests filled the lower levels. Different species held rallies, some supporting the council, others demanding change. Security forces tried to keep order, but they looked overwhelmed. "This way," the Velmara escort said. His name was Korvan, and during the flight back, he had told them his own story. His grandfather had questioned the council's methods once and was quietly removed from service. Korvan had always wondered if the official story was true. Now, he knew. They were taken to a secure conference room rather than the trial chamber. Inside, they found unexpected visitors. A Tarn representative stood near the window, its fungal body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Beside it floated a Kess, an energy being contained in a specialized suit. "Captain Day." The Tarn spoke through a translation device. "I am Speaker Boar. We have been watching your species for years. Your broadcasts, your stories, your endless debates about rights and wrongs. We found it fascinating. Most species stop caring about justice once they become comfortable." The Kess added in a voice like wind chimes. "Humans never stopped caring, even when it would be easier to look away." More species arrived throughout the day. Each one had their own story about the Council's control. The Kess revealed they had been pacified 80,000 years ago. The Council decided they were too aggressive, so they altered their species' genetics. Now the Kess could barely feel strong emotions at all. They existed but did not truly live. Watching humanity fight reminded us of what we lost. The Kes said softly. We want it back. Even if anger and passion sometimes lead to conflict, that is better than this emptiness. Earth's government sent new instructions. The politicians wanted Day to negotiate for humanity's admission to the Council as full members. They saw an opportunity to gain power. But sitting in that room, listening to species describe their suppression and pain, Day felt sick at the idea of just joining the existing system. Hana noticed his discomfort. You are thinking about what the witness showed us, she said quietly. Yes. If we just replace the old species at the top with humanity, we fix nothing. The cycle continues. Some other young species 1,000 years from now will face the same thing we did. That evening, they were finally summoned to the council chamber. But it was different now. The chamber was packed with observers. The normal quiet dignity was gone, replaced by shouting and arguments. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries were now accusing each other openly. Selector Vin tried to call for order, but his voice barely carried over the noise. Finally, he activated a sound dampener that made everyone's voice cut out except his own. This emergency session will address the accusations made by the so-called witness, Vin said. His crystal body flickered with stress. The Council acknowledges that certain historical events have been simplified for the sake of unity. Simplified? Hana stood up, her voice sharp. You rewrote history. You erased entire civilizations from the records. 3 species had their intelligence reduced until they became animals. That is not simplification. That is genocide. Prosecutor Korath stood as well, but his voice was different now, less certain. The Council made difficult choices to prevent greater conflicts. Would you rather we allowed wars that could destroy planets? Kill billions? I would rather you allowed species to make their own mistakes, Day said, standing beside Hana. The architects asked for representation. You could have said yes. Instead, you went to war. That was your choice, not theirs. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Species loyal to the Council defended their actions. Younger species demanded apologies and reparations. Some called for the Council to be dissolved entirely. A new voice cut through the chaos. If I may speak. Everyone turned to see an elder Velmara, even older than Korath. Walking slowly to the center floor, she wore simple robes and carried no symbols of rank. I am Elder Saris, she said. I am old enough to remember when my species first joined the Council. 5,000 years ago. We were young then, full of ideas for how to improve the galaxy. The elder species at that time smiled and nodded and ignored every suggestion we made. It took us 2,000 years to finally be heard. And by then, we had become like them. Tired. Afraid of change. Convinced that the way things are is the way things must be. She turned to look directly at Day. I reviewed the witness's historical data. Everything it said is true. We, the Velmara, helped suppress 4 species over the millennia. We told ourselves it was necessary. We told ourselves we were preventing wars. But really, we were just protecting our power. The chamber fell silent. An elder council member admitting fault was unprecedented. So what do we do now? Someone asked. Day had been thinking about this for 3 days. He took a deep breath and walked to the center of the chamber. We change everything. Not through war, not through revenge, but through agreement. I propose we dissolve the Galactic Council and create something new. A Galactic Assembly, where every species gets a voice based on their population, not their age. Chaos, Selector Vin said immediately. You would create chaos. Maybe at first, Day agreed. But democracy is messy. It is loud and slow and frustrating. It is also the only system where power belongs to everyone, not just the oldest or strongest. And what of the forbidden knowledge? Another council member asked. The technologies that could destroy worlds? We open the libraries, Hana said, stepping forward. All of them. But we create a mentorship system. Elder species help younger ones understand dangerous technologies. We share knowledge together, instead of hoarding it. The debate went on for hours. Conservative species saw it as suicide. Progressive ones saw it as their only hope for real change. Humanity's proposal divided the galaxy right down the middle. Finally, Korath stood again. There is a problem. Even if we agree to this, we cannot trust humanity to not seek revenge. They have every right to be angry with us. We do not want revenge, Day said firmly. We want justice. Those are not the same thing. Revenge is about punishing the past. Justice is about building a better future. Pretty words, Korath said. But how do we know you mean them? Because, Day said quietly, we are offering you a choice. Take 30 days. Gather your species, talk to your people, and decide if you want to try this new system. If you choose yes, we move forward together. If you choose no, and decide to maintain the old council by force, I will release something the witness gave me. He held up a data chip. This contains every secret deal, every suppressed record, every lie told by the council over the last 1,000,000 years. If I release it, the chaos will be uncontrollable. Every species will turn on each other. Trust will collapse. The galaxy might never recover. You are threatening us, Vin said. No, Day corrected. I am giving you a choice. Justice or order. You cannot have both, not anymore. The truth is out there now. You can either work with it, or be destroyed by it. Korath's many eyes studied Day for a long moment. If we agree to your summit, you will not release this information? I will encode it with a safeguard. It will only release if another species is ever forcibly suppressed again. As long as justice exists, the secrets stay hidden. If oppression returns, everything becomes public. The galaxy will police itself. It was a gamble. Day was betting that the council valued stability more than pride. He was also betting that enough species wanted change to pressure the conservative ones into agreement. The chamber fell silent as species representatives consulted with their home governments. Hours passed. Then Selector Vin spoke again. The council agrees to your summit. 30 days. Every species will send representatives to negotiate a new framework. But know this, Captain Day. If your proposal leads to war, if your dream of justice brings suffering, history will judge you harshly. I know, Day said. But I would rather be judged for trying to do right than for doing nothing while evil continues. As they left the chamber, Hana took his hand. You just bet the fate of the galaxy on humanity's ideals. I know, Day said again. I hope we are worthy of it. The 30 days that followed were the longest of Day's life. The summit took place on a neutral world called Haven, chosen because no major species had ever claimed it. Delegates arrived from across the galaxy, some with hope, others with deep suspicion. The first week was chaos. Species that had ancient grievances used the summit to air them publicly. The Tarn accused the Velmara of stealing their research 3,000 years ago. The Kess demanded reparations for their forced pacification. Smaller species complained that their voices had never mattered in council decisions. Day spent most of his time listening and mediating. He quickly learned that humanity's role was not to lead but to facilitate. When two species could not agree, he helped them find common ground. When debates became too heated, he reminded everyone why they were there. We all have grievances, he said during one particularly difficult session. Every species here has been hurt by the old system in some way, but if we only focus on past wrongs, we will never build a better future. Justice is not about revenge. It is about making sure the same mistakes never happen again. Hana worked with the scientific delegates, designing the new knowledge-sharing system. The libraries in the Forbidden Zones would be opened, but with safeguards. Dangerous technologies would require multiple species to approve their use. Elder species would mentor younger ones, but not control them. Lieutenant Yuna helped coordinate security. With so many species gathered in one place, tensions ran high. Several times, fights almost broke out. Yuna's team kept peace without taking sides, which earned respect from all parties. Engineer Jin worked on the technical infrastructure. If the new galactic assembly was going to work, It needed communication systems that could not be controlled or censored by any single species. He designed a network that was distributed across the galaxy, impossible to shut down or manipulate. On the 15th day, something unexpected happened. A Velmara delegation requested a private meeting with Day. He expected Koreth or Selector Vin, but instead, Elder Saris arrived with a group of younger Velmara scientists and soldiers. "Captain Day," Saris said, settling her insect body into a specially designed chair. "I want to speak honestly. My species is tired. We have been enforcing the Council's will for 5,000 years. We have made enemies of species that could have been friends. We have suppressed our own doubts and questions because that is what the elder races expected." One of the younger Velmara, a female named Mira, spoke up. "When we saw the witnesses broadcast, when we learned the truth about the First War, many of us felt relief. Finally, we could admit that we were wrong. Finally, we could imagine a different way. But you are afraid," Day guessed. "Yes," Saris admitted. "We are afraid of chaos. We are afraid of war. We are afraid of losing our place in the galaxy. What if we give up our power, and something worse takes our place?" Day thought carefully before answering. "Fear is natural. Change is scary. But you know what I learned from the witness? The galaxy has survived a lot worse than uncertainty. It has survived wars, plagues, and even the suppression of entire species. What it cannot survive is stagnation. When nothing changes, when power stays in the same hands forever, civilizations stop growing. They start dying slowly. And you believe your human democracy will prevent this?" Mira asked. "I believe it gives us a chance," Day said. "In democracy, power circulates. New ideas get heard. Mistakes get corrected because people can vote out leaders who fail them. It is not perfect. Humanity has made plenty of mistakes with our democracies, but it is better than the alternative." Saris was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "The Velmara delegation will support your proposal. We will be the first elder species to officially vote in favor of the Galactic Assembly." It was a breakthrough. Once the Velmara committed, other species felt safer making the same choice. The conservative faction, led by Selector Vin, found their support crumbling. On the 28th day, disaster nearly struck. A council warship appeared in orbit, filled with hardline conservatives who refused to accept change. They demanded the summit be dissolved, and all delegates return to council authority. The warship's commander issued an ultimatum: comply or face military action. Day stood on Haven's surface and broadcast his response to the entire galaxy. "Commander, you have the power to destroy this world. Your weapons are stronger than ours, but before you fire, I want you to know something. Every species at this summit made a choice to be here. They chose hope over fear, change over stagnation. If you destroy us, you will not stop change. You will only prove that the old system deserves to fall." "You are naive," the commander responded. "You think pretty words can change the galaxy. You are wrong." "Maybe," Day admitted. "But I am willing to die for the chance. Are you willing to kill thousands of delegates from 50 species to maintain your power? Because the whole galaxy is watching. They will see what the old order really is." The standoff lasted for hours. The warship's weapons were charged and ready. Delegates on the surface prepared for the worst. Some prayed, others simply held hands with delegates from other species. Then something remarkable happened. The crew of the warship mutinied. Junior officers locked the commander in his quarters and broadcast a message of their own. "We joined the fleet to protect the galaxy, not to murder those who ask for change. We stand with the summit." The warship withdrew. And in that moment, Day knew they had won. On the 30th day, the vote took place. Out of 50 species at the summit, 42 voted to create the Galactic Assembly. 5 voted against, 3 abstained. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. The transition would take 10 years. The old council would remain as an advisory body, but new representatives would be elected based on population and rotation schedules. The Forbidden Zones would become the Galactic Library System, open to all. And most importantly, a safeguard was built into the new system. If any species was ever forcibly suppressed again, Day's data chip would automatically release, exposing the crime to everyone. As the summit concluded, Prosecutor Korath approached Day privately. "I spent weeks trying to prove humanity guilty," he said. "I thought you were dangerous. I was right, but not in the way I expected. You are dangerous to the old order, to injustice, to comfortable lies. But you are also the best thing that has happened to this galaxy in a very long time." "We are not perfect," Day warned. "Humanity will make mistakes. We will disappoint people sometimes." "I know," Korath said. "But you gave us something we needed more than perfection. You gave us hope that things can change. That is worth any imperfection." 5 years passed. The transition was messy, just as Day had predicted. There were arguments, delays, and several near crises. But slowly, the new system took shape. Hana became Earth's representative to the new Galactic Assembly. She delivered speeches about cooperation and shared knowledge. She also ran the Galactic Library system, making sure that ancient wisdom was preserved and shared responsibly. Yuna became an instructor, teaching combat philosophy to 1,000 different species. Her lessons were simple. Fight when you must, but always know what you are fighting for. Peace maintained through fear is not real peace. Jin opened a university on Thanix 7, right next to the witnesses' chamber. Students from across the galaxy came to study ancient technologies and modern innovations together. The planet that had once been dead and forbidden was now alive with learning and discovery. Day became an admiral, commanding a joint task force that protected archaeological sites. Not from exploration, but from those who would destroy evidence of the past. He made sure that history was preserved, even the uncomfortable parts. On the 5th anniversary of the summit, Day returned to Thanix 7. He stood in the chamber where the witness had spoken, watching it pulse with faint light. The artifact was mostly dormant now, its purpose fulfilled, but once a year, it glowed brighter, as if checking that the galaxy had kept its promises. "We are trying," Day said to the artifact, though he did not know if it could hear him. "We make mistakes every day." The assembly argues constantly. Some species are frustrated with the slow pace of change. Others think we are moving too fast, but we are trying to do better. The witness pulsed once, a soft acknowledgement. Hana found him there. She held a tablet showing news from across the galaxy. 3 more species just applied for assembly membership. They said they were inspired by humanity's example. "That is good," Day said, "but also terrifying. What if we are setting an example that others cannot actually follow? What if we pushed for change too fast?" "Then we will deal with those problems when they come," Hana said simply. "All you can do is try to make good choices today. That is what justice means. Not getting everything perfect, but refusing to accept injustice even when it is hard to fight." They stood together in silence, watching the witness glow. Around them, the ancient ruins of Thanix 7 were being restored. Jin's students were mapping the city, translating the symbols, learning from the architects who had faced the same challenges so long ago. Above them, ships from a dozen species orbited peacefully. Some were bringing supplies for the university. Others were tourists, come to see the place where the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity was not perfect. They still argued among themselves. They still made mistakes, but they had given the galaxy something precious. The belief that change was possible, that justice was worth fighting for, and that even the oldest and most powerful systems could be reformed if enough people demanded it. In the quiet of the memorial chamber, visitors from across the galaxy left offerings and made vows. The most common inscription, now written in 10,000 languages, was simple. "Justice is not a gift. It is a choice we make every day." And every year, on the anniversary of the witness's awakening, the ancient relic pulsed once more, as if to say, "Yes, you understand. Keep going." Day watched the light fade and smiled. Humanity had been proclaimed guilty by the Galactic Council. But when the ancient relic spoke, it had called them something else. Bearer of Justice. It was a heavy title, a responsibility that would last for generations. But looking at Hana, at the students learning below, at the ships peacefully orbiting above, Day thought humanity just might be worthy of it after all. Not because humans were better than other species, but because they refused to stop trying to be better. And in the end, that was what mattered most.